There is one thing that both defines and divides the firstborn hip-hop generation: our first memories of the internet. The biggest change in generations is media and how it plays a role in modern life. For those born in the 80s, an older and younger sibling, or even a 9th and 12th grader, could have had completely different collective childhoods because of memories. Our recollection of cultural events and insights are what help us identify with others and what we have in common. They shape who we become, our outlook on life, and of course, how we parent. To find out how, I asked the fathers one question. When do you remember the internet becoming a thing? And how would you explain how you shared music and the internet to your children?
I tell my daughter all the time that your generation is very lazy, because I'm in the bubble of in the middle. I can still pull an encyclopedia and I can still go on Google.
When did the internet happen?
I think trying to explain to someone who never understood the concept of the internet not being around is going to be really, really hard.
The world before the internet was a lot smaller.
I didn't really use computers like that. I would always have to go to the library.
To have people understand that you had to pick up the phone to actually speak to someone, and the phone was plugged into the wall.
You had to make sure that, if the book was even available.
You tell a kid today who's 15 years old, younger, a little older, put out an encyclopedia, what? Who? What?
You really don't need to go to the books unless you're trying to really, look at stuff that's not on the internet.
Probably college, like the internet became a thing.
8th grade was 99.
16, 17 maybe?
I must have been about 13. However, in my household, we didn't have a computer till 2005.
The internet had become a thing, I believe, around the time I was going into my latter parts of middle school, more so 9th grade for me. That's like around 1998.
I was around 21 when I felt the effects of the internet really becoming a big thing.
I know it came out sometime in like the early 90s, I forget.
I was going into the military, I was 17.
We went from a Brother word processor to an actual Dell, some kind of Windows computer.
I didn't really have a computer at the crib until I was a lot older.
I think I remember the internet about the age of 10 or 11.
I feel like the internet became a thing, if not 99, or late 90s. I can remember in the late 90s it becoming a thing.
Internet for me became a thing in 1995 during the dial-up era.
Oh no, I don't go back that far. I don't remember if there was a time when there was no internet.
I don't remember a time when the internet wasn't around.
I kind of don't, but yeah, I don't.
I work construction in New York City, and around that time, you could see that there was a big push with a lot of data companies, a lot of media companies.
I was first exposed to computers in 1995.
I dead don't remember the internet in 95. Hell no.
At my school, we had a virtual campus where we would set up maybe 5 or 6 computers and we would sell to the other schools.
Data and input was very huge.
Your network and the people you knew from school or the neighborhood, that was it. The internet, it just allowed you, if you had access to the internet, it allowed you access to other parts of the world and other information that may not be attainable, right in front of you.
I don't know, I used to have one of those computers that would print the paper and then you would have to rip the pieces off the side.
Right.
At one point, I went to the military. I didn't even use a computer in there.
We had access to Gateway, and we were on Netscape, and we were dialing up on modems. I could barely remember it, but...
Right, because with the AOL, the dial-up and everything.
We had dial-up, and I used to have to complain to my mother about technology.
I used to make those crazy noises.
At crackling, the sound from AOL.
And you had to wait for it to log on. Sometimes it'll log on, sometimes it won't.
AIM and everything.
I would use AOL Instant Message. That's pretty much where I spent most of my time.
And when it first became a thing, everybody didn't have access to it.
It still wasn't really jumping because people was really outside.
You'd be on the AOL joint and somebody pick up the phone.
That's the days that you didn't want your mother to pick up the phone, because if she picked up the phone, it knocked down your internet.
It was a process getting to the information you were trying to get.
That's pretty much where I communicated.
Yahoo, and you had to get your email and do all this other stuff.
What we see now, which is texting and all these different things, we had it back in the day, but you came home from school, you hit AOL.
Now my son complains about his iPhone battery dying out. It's a whole different world when it comes to technology.
The internet was something that a lot of people were using to do their research, projects, homework, even studying for tests and just gathering, information. Also able to link to different schools if you were interested in applying to schools or recruited in my case, recruited by schools. That was a very big resource.
I first discovered it, I want to say I was in middle school. They had this little social networking called Skonex and MySpace.
For me, that love came at school, and then it actually went forward in college.
There was a lot of money being thrown around. I was a little too young or new in my business to see it and what it was for, but I know a lot of people made a lot of money in stocks and such around that dot-com boom era.
I remember when I first went to school, I kept telling myself, man, I'm going to study computer science, I'm going to kill it. And then the bubble burst. That was, I think, like 2002, 2003. I was graduating college. The bubble bursted. Instead of making 50 grand, I think I made maybe like 30 grand that year.
How would you explain what a floppy disk is to your kids?
A floppy disk is a floppy disk is a jump drive. It's like a jump drive with smaller storage space. I feel like they may be able to connect to that a little bit.
And then, of course, the wave of MP3 and downloading, that came in as well.
That's when it became a thing for me, I think, being able to get access to music, because before that...
I don't remember 8-track. I remember the record, what's the name of it? The
Vinyl records.
Vinyl records, thank you. Of course, I remember cassette tapes. I had a plethora of those.
Explaining cassettes to the kids now, they wouldn't even know what it is.
I used to tape like Monday night mixtapes.
DJ Clues, 9 o'clock Monday night mixtape or something like that, and hit and record on your tape deck.
Well, I never owned cassette tapes, but my grandfather and my grandparents, they really had a lot of antique items laying around the house. So I remember one time I was cleaning out the closet and I ran into like this old Run DMC jam box. Like it was like one of them old boom box, and I popped it open. It was a cassette tape. So I asked my grandparents, "What's that?" She was like, "Boy, you don't know nothing about that. That's old school." So that was like my first time really seeing a cassette tape. But
I didn't remember cassettes too much at all, I'll be honest with you. I'm 1991. I mean, a little bit. I see my parents play it, but I wasn't using it per se.
There's times when, I show them like radios from back in the day and, let them know that we used to have cassettes that you used to have to put in a radio.
You got your tape deck out, and you listen to, 97.1 or 98.7 at the time, and you had to hit play and record in order to record something so you can hear it later on.
So you never recorded songs off the radio?
Nah, I never recorded songs off the radio.
You have to, hold it a certain way to record songs off the radio.
So if that song came on, you'd be like, oh, and then halfway through the song and you listen to it, you just have to listen to that last half and then hope they'll play it again at some point while you listen to the radio.
Then we used to walk around with the little Walkmans.
I did have one cassette. Forgot the name of the artist, but I did have one cassette, and I bought it at like a little thrift shop or something like that.
Then that evolutionized to
CD players.
The little CD discs with the big headphones.
They'll think I'm extremely old listening to that type of stuff, or even telling them about that.
Back in that day, I didn't do too much music sharing online. You hit the flea market, you catch that $5 CD, you was good.
And then moved from that to, MP3 players to
Napster.
Napster. Somebody told me about Napster, where you could download all this free music.
Back in the day, I used to come home and go on LimeWire.
Frostwire.
Those two, those went hand in hand, and viruses. That's, those three went hand in hand.
You download whatever you want.
Download songs, but that slowed up your computer. So you wasn't doing too much of that.
You download music and start, listening to it at your own leisure.
LimeWire was basically a download site.
That's where we used to steal music.
They considered it pirating. That wasn't a term just yet.
Just downloading mad like girl flakes, but that's another story for another day.
Unfortunately, say Chad came out with an album and his album went platinum, instead of buying it, let me back up. I'm sorry, let me back up.
It was instant gratification. It wasn't, waiting for the new hit, the new joint to drop, or Flex to drop something on a Tuesday night. It was, just go on your computer downstairs and download it and listen to it as much as you want.
And I was getting like underground woo music.
And at that time, it was normal. Everybody was doing it, and then of course laws restricted it, so we had to kind of pull away from it.
We used to go to the record stores and buy albums, stand on line for that new Chad album dropping, and then from there we went from to Napster and Limewire, where we unfortunately we stole music.
That was the way you got music, and what it did, it just allowed you to hear a vast amount of music whenever you wanted.
It was a great thing because you were able to listen to all the new songs that you want to listen to without waiting.
It used to take us maybe 2 or 3 hours to download one album, and then it would take us another 30, maybe 40 minutes just to actually put it on a CD. So technology has rapidly changed, where now you could get an album in less than a minute.
I had a slow connection. So you may wait for an hour for one track, you know what I mean? But you would wait for an hour because you needed that track.
So now you have torrents and things like that. It was the equivalent to a torrent site, except for instead of having torrents to download and then you had to open up the file or what have you, you just had the file right there. So it was like file sharing. Everybody could share each other's files, but you also ended up sharing viruses too, because everybody pretty much, as the internet basically developed, it was all a collective of everybody's information, which is scary to think about these days.
They don't even really know what MP3 players are.
Now we have that bubble, like the bubble kind of like sealed, and now it kind of expanded, right? Where now the internet is enormous. Now we don't live without it.
To now where it is Apple Music or Google Play, Shazam and everything else.
But now you get to stream, you gotta, pay for memberships and be able to go on streaming platforms to listen to your music, which is not bad. I think artists should be getting paid for the amount of music that people are ingesting. But what it does is sometimes limits the opportunities for people to hear.
Everything gets streamed, so a lot of the stuff you don't really go to Walmart or Target or Best Buy to to buy CDs. You really just download it onto your phone.
MySpace era was jumping. Me personally, I would send messages directly to people to come to my site and listen to my music. And the advantage with MySpace is that it automatically plays your music as soon as they click the button. So I should share, be personal with the messages, like, give them a compliment of something that they're doing.
But it also took a little bit of away from the culture, in my opinion.
Before that, you had sidekicks, you had Blackberries, so a lot of people were BBMing, texting through the sidekicks. But I think once the iPhones really dropped, that's when everybody started really, trying to hop on the internet and, do whatever whatever the phone could offer for you at the time.
To see today how things progressed, it's amazing.
Back then when we were, 14, 15, we weren't really on cell phones the way kids are now. We were in the streets.
The internet is not something they should be taking advantage.
Software is eating the world, and it's a testament to it with Twitter, Facebook, even Snapchat. Technology has just changed so much for the greater good.
The internet is good and bad. Once again, you get your message across quickly, right? But I feel it just has a means of being saturated like anything else. I miss the old ways of real interaction.
To actually dial numbers and to send letters.
The best way to explain it is if you put one person in the middle, holding a bunch of strings, and then you get all your friends to surround that person and take a piece of that string, that would be the internet to me. That's the best way I could describe it for back in the day, because it kind of captures the dial-up service, it captures,
The internet definitely helped me where I am now because, it helps me process how to market on my own without a big budget. So that's why I explained to him how to capitalize and monetize without hurting yourself.
I tell them to take advantage of it. That's what I tell them every time I can. Take advantage of the internet. The information is really at your fingertips. And the way the internet is now, it's really connecting you to other sides of the world.
In terms of seeing these kids with the technology, this is their time. This is their generation.
So many resources and opportunities lying within the internet that our kids take advantage of.
For them, they're gonna be embarking on a whole different type of journey technologically than we did.
As of right now, it's been very helpful to me because it allows me to maintain that communication with my sons via Skype or via FaceTime. Now with the phones and everything being so advanced, smartphones, iPhones, Galaxies, you can Skype and have that time with your child, that intimate time, as opposed to back then it was just a simple phone call. It was really expensive too if it was long distance.
My 3-year-old knows how to browse. She knows how to go on YouTube, look for videos, get on Netflix, look for TV shows. And you know, for something so simple to us, but that a 3-year-old can pick up on, and now the world is at her fingertips as well, is just a marvel to see.
Does Black Planet count?